Jamie Raskin is now warning foreign dictators that Donald Trump will not actually be here forever. So maybe in the meantime, be careful about how you meddle in America's affairs. Take a look.
Look, President Bukele, who's declared himself a dictator, and the other tyrants, dictators, autocrats of the world have to understand that the Trump administration is not going to last forever. We're going to restore strong democracy to America, and we will remember who stood up for democracy in America and who tried to drive us down towards dictatorship and autocracy. So I'm glad that Chris Van Hollen showed exactly where America is, and we're not afraid of any dictator anywhere.
Okay, so Jamie Raskin is always very direct. It's funny how like you can have a Democrat who tells it like it is and is unvarnished in what he thinks and never counts. It's always like when it's a fake populist lying to your face, then they're the straight shooter. But Raskin's being very clear. Now that said, this message has already made the rounds in right-wing media, and they're like, how dare he meddle and promise that he's gonna be going after Trump, he's gonna be going after his allies or whatever. By the way, they would have loved this out of Trump when Biden was in office, let's be clear. And Jamie Raskin is not saying, hey, Spain, if you make a trade deal with Trump, we're gonna nuke you. He's saying very specifically to the dictators that are helping Donald Trump to shred our constitution, our system of checks and balances, as well as due process, then there's gonna be consequences for that. That said, and we're gonna get to more of Raskin in just a sec, this is a line of messaging that opens him up to these sorts of attack from the right wing. So Jayar, I'm curious what you make about it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. So I'm just curious what people are thinking, because remember 9 years ago, Trump was in office in 2016, and he was talking to Fox News and Ducey, I think specifically. And somehow he wants people to stand up in attention, just like these other dictators. He's best friends with Kim Jong-un. He loves him some Vladimir Putin. It ended up being Viktor Orban and now Bukele. So when are we gonna finally have, like, at least have the conversation? At least be honest, bro. At least say that you're okay with people who commit human rights abuses, who murder their political opponents, or at least their political opponents disappear randomly. If these types of things always happen in these countries, and we see the degree to which CICOT down in El Salvador is run, we see all this stuff. At least say that you're okay with that approach to life and in general for this country. Because before, when he was saying all that, you guys told us that we had Trump derangement syndrome and that we were denying reality. Oh, and he's just joking. He's just talking about having a country that at least progresses in a certain direction and has a national pride and patriotism. He's not really talking about cozying up to dictators. He's cozying up to dictators. Is it happening or is it not happening? At least have to have this conversation where you're okay with it or you're not. We've gotten past it being a joke because it's happening. Look, he's ready to bail on these negotiations with Ukraine and Russia that was supposed to happen in 24 hours. He's bailing on them, which would help who? And who's the one country that didn't get these tariffs slapped on them when some island with penguins and seagulls and seals were hanging out on them? Why aren't these questions being asked repeatedly, over and over and over again? You said he wasn't cozying up to dictators, but we keep seeing dictators cozying up to him. What's the answer, bro? What's the answer?
Yeah, look, first of all, I just want to fact check because I think a lot of people are showing their ignorance about the world. There are penguin species that have a thriving trade in shiny, interesting rocks. And no, really, they do. And I think that if they're gonna be engaging in that trade, if those rocks are gonna be making it to the US, there should probably be a tariff on there. But anyway, yeah, no, you're right. Super suspicious stuff. Donald Trump, oh boy, is he tough with Republicans, he loves posturing. Second he's up against a dictator, he is pudding soft. He's like a nice warm marshmallow. He just folds in on himself like the center of a s'more. And we see that. And that's fine. That's what he is. It's what he has always been. But when you give people like Bukele, like theoretically, you give him US citizens and you tell us we'll never be able to get them back, then I understand why the warnings might need to be there. Again, you gotta talk about this in the right way, I think. And I think Raskin's a very responsible guy. He's a very smart guy. I trust him more than other people in this area. But that said, why don't we go to a little bit more of what he had to say about this, and we'll finish up the hour.
If and when we come back to power, and we will, we are not going to look kindly upon people who facilitated, to use a word of the day, who facilitated authoritarianism in our country. Because that's an assault on our Constitution and on our people.
Yeah.
think that's pretty good. Yeah, basically just saying, like, he's not saying anybody who works with America, anybody who works with Donald Trump or whatever. He's saying very specifically, if you are a party to the destruction of our system of government, we are going to remember that. And I think that's very important. It's the exact sort of pressure. And you could call them threats if you want. You could call it a warning. You could call it good information, accurate information, whatever. That is exactly what Donald Trump would do. And there are so many lessons from Donald Trump I do not want the Democrats to learn, but there's also ones that I think they should learn. And I think the Democrats would be well served to learn. And maybe this is an example of that.
Yeah, they may as well stop being afraid of saying and doing things that are strong and actually patriotic for the country and actually keep the Americans safer than all these other things they're doing. Just say it. They're already saying that you're coming after them for no reason anyway. You might as well do it for the reasons that we see in front of us.
Exactly. And by the way, I'm just going to end with an update to a story we talked about slightly earlier in the show. A commenter says, according to, this is Seminar Caller, according to NPR, the White House is looking to replace Hegseth. We will see. NPR, that sounds like fake news to me. They should probably have all of their funding pulled, but I don't know. Look, Carolyn Leavitt is dead. We're gonna show you the video tomorrow on the show. She's gonna be like, fake news, not true, and then he'll be gone in 2 days, maybe. That happens constantly. So that would be certainly exciting development. What do you know? Incompetence actually having some consequence for it, but we'll have to find out about that together.